I recently did a video covering all of the new blocks in 1.4.5, or at least I thought I did, until I learned of an old item becoming a new block that I totally missed, and man is it a weird one. Let's jump straight into it. Greetings friends, Khaios here. I thought I had previously covered every single block that was added in the Bigger and Boulder update until I was talking to one of the developers of Terraria and they pointed out to me something I hadn't realized. Cannonballs can now be placed. These were added way back in the 1.2 update when the pirate and cannon were introduced, being sold by said NPC. Originally, they were solely used as ammunition for the cannon, and they were never placeable, much to the woe of many a builder who wanted cannonball stacks. Notably, we cannot actually use cannonballs as ammunition for cannons anymore. Now, the cannon will only fire by two means. We can use wiring, which has around a 15-second cooldown, or we could use torches to light it and fire it much faster. Since cannonballs are no longer ammo, what use do they have? Well, now we can place them. But the placed versions aren't what I thought they would be. I figured we'd get a stack of cannonballs as new furniture pieces, maybe 3 or 4 different furniture styles with varying stacks of cannonballs, but actually, it's a block. And an extremely weird one at that. In today's short video, we're going to be taking a look at the block version of the cannonball, how it works, and how we could potentially use it. But before we get into that, don't forget to help the channel grow with our AI overlord by leaving a like and a comment, and subscribe to help push us towards our next milestone of 400,000 subscribers. Thank you all for the engagement and the support. Now, onto this bizarre block. When I heard cannonballs were placeable, I had assumed it was as furniture, but it's not. When I heard it was a block, I assumed it was like a coin pile, where they are non-solid blocks that we can't hammer or shape in any way, it's just making a set appearance. But no, actually cannonballs are completely solid tiles. When placed, they take up a 1x1 tile, although visually they are slightly larger than a normal block, making them, to my knowledge, the only physical block that is bigger than 1x1 tile. And unlike most blocks that are centered on that space, cannonballs are actually offset slightly to the lower left corner, which means they will leave a little bit of a gap of air between any blocks on the upper right corner, and they will slightly sit into anything that's below or to the left of them. They are solid tiles, but we can actuate them if you want them in the background, and that interaction works as you would expect. The block gets a bit darker and sent to the background. Applying the block with some white paint can help offset that darkness, though it isn't a perfect match. But that's also normal for block actuation. In terms of paint, Cannonball doesn't hold it very well. When you use deep paint, you do see a bit of a color shift, but it's very dark, and the change with normal paint is pretty much unnoticeable. Only the neutral paints really make an impact here. That's not too uncommon with dark gray blocks like this, however. This is where the block starts getting more unique. When we build a group of them, they do not blend with each other, each tile retaining its original shape. In fact, if any block blends with Cannonball, whether by natural block blending like with smooth marble, which can pretty much blend with anything, or by sloping blocks, Cannonball will not blend with the connecting block. This allows us to finally create stacks of cannonballs, but perfectly straight rows of cannonballs aren't exactly what we envisioned, so it might feel like we can't get our vision of stacked cannonballs. But actually, we can. Here's where the block gets even more unique. When we hammer a block, usually it drops to a half version. Hammering it again will start cycling it through various shapes of triangles. The first time we hammer a cannonball, it forms a half version of itself. That tracks, but when we hammer it again, not a triangle. Instead, the cannonball just shifts to the position to the right. Hammering it again shifts it to the left. The next two hammers move it up slightly and shifts it towards the inner right and the inner left. So instead of actually making triangles with the block, it visually moves its position. This allows us to finally attain the coveted cannonball stack. Again, these will be solid blocks, so if you want this as a decorative piece in the background, I recommend actuating them and painting them white. So great, we have solid cannonball blocks that can be stacked into a very unique way, but why exactly am I able to stand inside of this cannonball, but I stand on top of this one? So what is really happening when we take a hammer to the cannonball? Visually, it's just moving its position around, but in functionality, we are actually sloping the block. That's the reason I can stand on top of this version, but I stand inside of this one. I'm actually standing on these block shapes, despite how the cannonballs appear. And I'm going to prove it to you. We cannot block swap with cannonballs, so I can't simply put other blocks in its place to show you the hidden shape, but there are other ways to prove it. If we have a block above the cannonball, and we build another sample of 2 normal blocks to the side, you'll see what happens when we hammer each of the blocks. As we reach the triangle with the slope on the bottom, you'll see the normal block suddenly clings and merges with the block above it, even though they don't normally blend. And with the cannonball, while the block doesn't visually blend with the other due to how cannonballs work, we can see the above block attempting to blend with the cannonball. So they are connected. But this isn't the only way that I could show that these are actually sloped. For veterans of the channel, you probably know where I'm going with this. This is what we call a hoik. When we enter a sloped block, it will shove you out of that block in a predictable direction depending on how the block is sloped. If that happens to push you into another sloped block, that one will continue to push you. By chaining these, it allows us to rapidly be pushed through solid blocks, which could be a great form of transportation. There are a few ways to enter a sloped block, one of which is using sloped platforms. Now, even though it doesn't appear this way, we could actually build hoiks with cannonballs. As you can see, when we walk into this, despite its appearance, we will actually be pushed in the exact same manner as normal sloped blocks. So yeah, it might not look like we're sloping cannonballs, but we actually are. So aside from cannonball stacks, how will we use these? Well, it's a perfectly round block that's slightly bigger than a silly balloon, and that block can be visually shifted in different directions, so it can have a ton of build applications. It could be coconuts in a tree, wheels on a custom go-kart, bowling balls, bolts on a tech build, and since it holds shadow paint well, it could be a very unique block for getting silhouette shapes. You can basically use this anytime you need a round block that can be shifted around in a unique way, as long as you don't need it too bright in color. Plus, we could have more interesting looking hoik tracks that don't have a bunch of triangles in them. I look forward to experimenting more with this block, and it really makes me wish that we had even more shifty tiles to work with. In my opinion, this is the weirdest block in Terraria, and I love it. Leave a comment telling me what you all think of the block, and while you're there, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to get us closer to our 400,000 subscriber goal. And if you want to help support the channel in a more direct way, check out my Patreon for various rewards, including access to my world saves, my Discord server, and your names in the credits. Or you can become a channel member for similar rewards, as well as an icon next to your name in the comments. A special thanks to my biggest supporters for the month, Kasu and Slathozar Porb. And be sure to check out my channel artist MythicalWater, linked in the description below. Thank you all very much for watching. Be back soon with a new video. Happy building!